Hi everyone, and welcome to our latest webinar, Microsoft Dynamics 365 for asset-intensive businesses. My name is Gareth Boyle, the Marketing Manager for Microsoft here at Fusion 5, and I'm joined today by David Kahn, Senior Consultant F&O, Pedro Vong, Industry Director for Asset Intensive, Lance Garrett, Manager for F&O Solution Strategy, and our guest from Dynaway, Mikkel Oldenburg, Director of Strategic Partnerships. Before we kick things off with our first speaker, just a couple of bits of housekeeping. The first portion of today's presentation will be covered by the speakers listed above, followed by a short Q&A at the end. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the top right-hand corner of your browser or Teams application, and we'll cover them during the final couple of minutes. Today's presentation will also be recorded and shared with you and those who couldn't join us after the event is concluded. With that out of the way, let's kick things off with our first presenter, David Kahn. David.
Good morning or afternoon or whatever the case may be. My name's Dave Kahn. I'm just going to share my screen at this point in time. All good? Okay. My name's Dave Kahn, as suggested earlier. I'm a Senior Consultant at Fusion 5. My specialty area is around EAM and Asset and Works Management. Today I'm going to be talking about, I'll just move my slide. Today I'm going to be talking about, my topics are tracking asset performance, maintenance, schedule and costs, job performance and in terms of maintenance and repair, preventive maintenance scheduling to minimise downtime, and general work order management for streamlining of maintenance tasks. We're going to have a bit of a discussion about each one of these topics in the live system of D365. So I'll just bring that up. Okay, so you should see my screen there of D365 F&O. The first thing I'm going to do is just a quick talk about the front screens. So that's the first screen that we see in D365. And as you can see, there's heaps of functionality there. In asset management, we've got a bunch of other typical type of functionality you'd see in most EAMs, assets, functional locations, etc. Today I'm going to concentrate on a workspace called Work Order Management. From Work Order Management, we can do a lot of analysis just based on this particular screen. So the first screen we're going to see here is a conglomerate of our work orders. We've got what we call tiles here that link to live data. So if we click on these, it'll take us through to a search grid where we can interrogate individual work orders, analyze work order types, etc., and export grids, etc. So as with most things in D365, these can all be personalised to your preference. So you can add tiles, remove tiles, and customise this a bit, as well as the grids if you need other types of information or different data sets to interrogate. What we're going to have a look at today is analytics. Now this is embedded BI type functionality, and it's quite handy for the maintenance manager on the go or the team leader. And this gives us a dashboard type look and feel that you can use these graphs and summary insights in your day-to-day reporting or periodic reporting. They look fairly good. Now, in terms of asset performance, what we can do with these screens, we get quite a visual summary on all the aspects of our work order management as well as our asset performance. We can from the screen, all these graphs, these pie graphs, are all dynamic. So each time we click on these, we're able to get a real live link of the underlying data in near real time, depending on how often these things update. So we can drill down. We can look at the various types of work we're performing, corrective inspections, etc. We can use these filters here to filter the information we see to drill down on, for example, how much preventive maintenance within the organisation we're performing versus scheduled versus preventative, etc. We've got the various life cycle states. Again, we can look down our work in the various stages of work, and then we can also group those by functional location. A functional location could be in some organisations, your geographical location or a process or a specific function of your organisation. These are all user defined, of course. So in this particular example here, and this is demo data, so in this particular example, we got functional locations called fleet, line, production, site, a couple of sites, etc. On the right here, we've got our work order types, functional location types. We've got our job group, fairly self-explanatory. And over here, we've got our asset types. Now, we can use a combination of these filters to look at our asset types, being generator, vehicle, light passenger vehicles, general plant type assets, and we can then filter and look at what sort of asset types, how they compare against different locations, and how are they in various stages of completion or its life cycle. And then we can further filter those down or include or exclude open or corrective type work as opposed to unplanned and preventive repair and inspections and services, etc. So here we can look at our asset performance by asset class and then compare that to say different sites, different operational areas within the organisation to compare what assets are performing to expectation and what assets may be lacking in that expectation of performance. And we can then drill down into the actual data in their work order screens to find out exactly what the case may be. Is it the environment? Is it the training of resources, etc.? Or is it the type of machinery? Because we can also compare make model against other make models or asset classes in different sites, etc., to give us that analysis on how our assets are performing. To the right here, we've got some insights. We have a little tab here, a little pane here, because it highlights the most frequently repaired asset. It's also suggesting that the most common type of work order type is preventative maintenance, which is good. The most frequent job type on the work orders is inspection. And our work orders, most of our work orders come from a functional location called delivery. We also can see our the most repaired type asset in the organisation and the most required trade skill. In this case, it's the operator. So this is a bit of information on different aspects of our assets. Over the page, on the next tab down the bottom here, and again these are customizable, so we can add other information through various means to add other panes. I won't go through that now, but we can change these types of graph and add other types of table and information as required. The next tab here I'll go into is called Asset Repair Insights, and this is a bit of a table. Again, these are customizable. We have some KPIs up the top here: our mean time between failure, our maximum average MTBF, maximum average mean time to repair, and a maximum mean time to repair. Just some information. Based on its entirety, we can actually go down to individual machines, and you'll see these KPIs will change depending on which individual machine we select. Or we can go down to asset type and down to manufactured, make, model, etc. Other handy details in our work order details on this tab here is, again, our different work orders or type of work according to asset type, a generalized asset type, or we've got individual assets in this pane over here. This particular one is unplanned work orders by asset, and we can drill down further within these individual assets. Up the top here, we get work order calendar by job group, etc. What current life cycle state. This gives us good analysis into where some bottlenecks might be in the work order life cycle, and that might be at the close stage, and we find that most of our work orders haven't been finished or finalised correctly. So that gives us a bit of a task to go through and clean up our data and just correct that, make some corrections. We have work orders by asset. We can see which assets are consuming most of our time and materials, or by asset type, as we mentioned before, and the types work orders by the job type. For example, inspection, repairs, preventive, etc. Planned, basically our planned and unplanned type work. And we can compare that by the job groups or the work groups, and we can look at do some analysis in which work groups may be performing in different functional locations or different sites, different areas of the organisation, and we can compare that to which particular asset types or individual assets. So we can look at get some insights into maybe environmental reasons or skill sets or training that might be needed, or experienced workforce. What may be the cause or the root cause of some of the problems that we find for inefficient sort of maintenance works, as well as the asset itself. It might be environmental, it might be the operator, undue wear and tear type of thing. So I'll just wrap up from here. So our two areas here, just to summarise, we got the workspace itself in D365. It gives us a individual work orders where we can interrogate individual work. We can create work orders from here. However, the power of this is really in the analytics, in the functionality here, where we can personalise these into different graph types, add different data sets to location type, work order types, etc. And we can filter down using various filters to narrow down or include or exclude certain data, so we can get some insights on where your assets are performing, where they might need some sort of further analysis to look at planned and unplanned, or look at their expected performance. We can do that by the work groups as well, your workforce, either by the work group, individuals, etc., by functional location or special skill sets for the asset type, etc. With that, I'm going to finish up and hand back to Gareth. Gareth.
Yeah, so thank you, Gareth and David again. So as Gareth mentioned, I'm the industry director for the asset intensive industry. So I support a lot of the industries through delivery and from a pre-sales point of view. Just going to talk about some of the cost efficiency and profitability mechanisms that we have in 365 that will help with lots of maintenance departments to control their costs and look at maintaining profitability across the business. The first example I'll show you is around managing the expenses that are related to work orders. So anytime we have a maintenance request or any preventative maintenance that we might have budgeted for, it eventuates into a work order. And from that work order, we have costs involved. In my little example here, what we'll do is we'll we'll look at an emergency work order for a forklift, just going with the theme that David had before. And we'll look at some electrical work that needs to be done on a forklift. From there, we'll raise a purchase requisition for a subcontractor to come and maybe work on some internal wiring for that forklift, and then look at some of the approval mechanisms that are involved in managing that expense. And then eventually that will become a purchase order that we can send out to our subcontractor to do the work. So I'll just play this little video here. So here we've got the front dashboard of D365. I'm just going to click into my emergency repairs, and I've got one emergency repair here for a forklift. From here, I need to raise a requisition for a contractor to do some work. So I'll click into the line and raise a requisition. From here, I can click new and give the requisition a name. Could be whatever it is, just something descriptive for my approver to see, and I'll hit OK there. Now I'll need to give a reason why I need to do this work. Now these reasons are important because that will help me determine the type of workflow or signing limits that get triggered when this requisition is submitted for approval. So selecting the right justification will help me determine the tree path to take when the approvals are enacted. In this case, I'm going to select the maintenance and repairs reason code, and it could be in the background. I've built a workflow that triggers off that. And then I'm going to line item for this repair. And in this case, I'm going to select my subcontractors. From there, I'm going to give the line item a description. So this is some electrical wiring that needs to be done. And it could be that I've already organized a quote from the subcontractor, and he's quoted me $800 to do this particular piece of work. I'll then put in the subcontractor's name, and that will be saved away. And this is important because you can also put in policies in the system to say certain fields on the requisition need to be filled in before it goes out for approval. So that could be, again, the reason code as to why I need that work to be done, as well as the vendor's name and potentially financial dimensions as well to help the pre-coding of those expenses. So now that I've saved it, you'll see that my little workflow button is available to me. So I'll click on that and submit that to for the business to review. From here, I can enter a comment so that will help the approver or the reviewer of this requisition to evaluate whether this should go ahead or not, and hit OK. Now you can see that my requisition is in review. That means it's been submitted into review. And again, that will go through an approval hierarchy depending on the value of my requisition. So it could be that as a maintenance worker raising this requisition or a maintenance planner raising this requisition, I have up to a certain amount, maybe $500 to automatically go through to my work orders. But in this case, I've got $800, so that needs to go through to my manager for approval. In this little demo, I've kept it simple, so I'm actually the manager as well. So what will eventually happen is if I go back to the front screen, you'll see that there's a work item assigned back to me. So I've just set up the workflow to go back to me. And then I can click into this screen, which will show me all the approvals that I need to perform in the system. So I've got a couple there, one for a new laptop and the other one is for the electrical work for that forklift. So now I can click into that work item. And as a manager, I can review the costs behind it, review the reason behind it, and any comments as well behind this requisition before I either approve or reject, or even delegate it to someone else to review. And that's available to me at the top of the screen there, where, again, using the little workflow button, I can approve or reject that requisition. In this case, I'm just going to approve it, and then I can enter my own comments as a manager. Now, this is important because this also helps in managing the expenses throughout the system, because this is provides full auditing. It tracks all the comments from the worker and the manager approving the workflow, and that way we can evaluate retrospectively later on, why things were approved. In this case, I'm just going to approve it. And at the moment, the workflow is in review. But if I just hit the little refresh button at the top right, you'll see that it's become approved. And what that will do then is make the purchase requisition available to be converted to a purchase order. In this case, I've set up the system so that it can automatically convert to a purchase order because I've got a vendor account specified. But it could be as part of your organization, you might want to consolidate multiple requisitions together for better purchasing power. Again, in this example, I've just kept it simple. So this requisition will just convert directly to a purchase order. And you'll see that the requisition is now closed because a purchase order has been created with this little link down here that I can click. And that will take me to the purchase order that I can essentially confirm and send these out to my subcontractor to use for reference purposes. I'll just generate that to the screen. And again, we can set this up to be automated and sent out to their emails. In this case, I'll just shoot it off onto the screen. And there's my purchase order. So that's my little example of being able to control the expense from end to end. So I've against the work order, I've raised the requisition and had that approved, then that automatically became a purchase order. Let me go on to my next slide. So this next example I want to show is around how we can analyze the costs and track the costs that are going into our work orders. I'm just going to switch into the live system now. So I'll just switch into my live system. I'll just click into the front screen. So you can see, again, I've got many different tiles, as David showed you before. In this case, I'm going to go into my asset tree. And what my asset tree will let me do is specify either different locations or different processes or different business units where each of my maintainable assets live. In this case, we've broken up by different business types. So, for example, I've got a plastics manufacturing business here with different lines of production. Okay, and my work orders will be assigned to the different assets that live under these different lines of business. Where that is an advantage from a cost tracking point of view is if I click into one of these locations here. So let's go into the plastics business and I'll open up that location. This will then give me the ability to view the costs against that location. So I can go to cost control. I can give it a date. So I'll just hit OK there. And what that will do is bring up all the costs that are related to that specific location. Let's give it a sec there. So you can see here, I've got a budgeted cost, my actual cost, and it's also broken down by different types of costs as well. So you can see preventative costs, corrective costs, and investment costs. But let's say I want to get more detail behind this. I've got some controls at the top here to break down that cost even further. So I can say, break it down by year or break it down by year and month. And you can see those costs are now further broken down by the periods that I've selected. I can also break it down by different asset attributes as well. So for example, I can go down to the very low level asset detail, or I can go to the asset type. And so you can see I've got different asset types in here across my different periods, and I can see the costs that are involved with those asset types. I can also look at things like maintenance job types, trades, for example, and that gives me a lot of granular detail about the costs that are involved in that particular location for my plastics business. So very, very simple example there of how I can track and manage the costs that are coming through to my work orders. Next up, I'm going to show a little example of how we can then use some of the procurement tools within the system to go into my supply negotiations so that I can have some information on hand when I have go into those negotiation discussions. So again, I'm just going to go to my favorites now and find my purchase and spend analysis workspace. And what this will do is bring up my Power BI analytics, which David showed earlier today. In this case, this is around my purchase and spend analysis. Let me just change my filters so that I can see a bit more data. So I'm just going to put the year offset here to a period that has a lot more data. And you can see here I've got a trend line. Let me go to the first tab here. I can see across my business the type of spend that I'm doing, the top 10 vendors that I'm working with. So you can see Acme Office Supplies, I'm doing a lot of business with. So if I'm going to those negotiations with Acme Office Supplies, I can filter the data just for that particular vendor and show the vendor and the contact with that vendor, the underlying data and analytics that will help with the purchasing and trade negotiations. I can break it down by the type of products as well that I'm spending with different types of vendors. So in this case, we've got a lot of installation services. We've got a lot of keyboards being purchased. I can break it down by period. I can also break it down by location. So this will show me map data that will show me the purchasing spend by location. And as I alluded to before, you can also show the trend analysis of how the spend has trended across different time periods. Again, just a little example of the power of the system to be able to grab all these transactions from the underlying data and surface up all that information ready for me to go into various meetings. So in this case, a supply negotiation meeting. That's it from me. I'll hand over to Lance, who will go into the next set of demos.
Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Lance Garrett. I'm the Manager for Solution Strategy at Fusion 5 for Finance and Operations. I'm going to take some of the stuff you saw from David and Pedro and expand it out a bit. So one of the big values of the Dynamics 365 platform is the breadth of functionality. So we've looked at a bit of the depth within asset management. I want to bring that out a bit and see some of the other things we can tap into, having it all in one solution. So if I can move my slides across. So up until now, we've been largely focusing on the asset maintenance side of the system. So this shows us kind of end to end from acquiring to retiring what we can do in finance and operations with assets. But I want to have a look at where that sits within the greater platform. So within finance and operations, you can see that asset management is just one piece of a much broader solution stack that has a whole heap on here that I could probably spend weeks talking about, but I won't. And if we look at that from an even greater platform perspective, not only are we tapping into all of that supply chain, finance and commerce stuff, we're also tapping into customer engagement. So we've got CRM, field service, and then all the stuff that underpins it down the bottom, security, Copilot with AI, all the Azure, Power Apps, Power BI, which is some of which you've already seen today. So I just want to do a little bit of an end-to-end looking at a procure to pay scenario, showing some of those features, but starting from the assets still. So we will be looking at spare parts, how we're planning for them, ordering them, bringing them in, warehousing them, ensuring quality's there, and then also paying for it. So that kind of true end-to-end, but focus from the asset perspective. So I'm going to start with looking at the new demand planning app. Now, a lot of the time with spare parts, you'd probably be looking at a min-max type coverage setting to plan. So when things drop to the min, the system automatically gives us a planned order to order back to the max. But another way we could do this is using the demand planning app, which sits in the Dataverse. So it can actually ingest data from not just finance and operations, but anywhere. So we could be setting it the consumption of spare parts. It's going to use machine learning AI to then predict into the future what it thinks the consumption is going to be going forward. So the stuff from supply planning and supply chain execution is all of the master planning and the stuff that's in finance and operations. But the new demand planning app is the stuff highlighted in green. So this is the demand planning app. So when you come into it and look at different forecasts, and you can overlap different forecasts with different other bits of data, maybe weather data, maybe sensor data, to look at trends and what's that doing to consumption of parts. Not only that, we've now got Copilot baked into it, so AI. So we can click on a specific point, and Copilot's going to go and look at that point compared to last year and give us some analytics, telling us what the initial forecast was, what the adjustments were, and some of the trends that have come out and why. So just bringing that data up to the surface, allowing us to get those insights extremely quickly. But we can still manage it based on a more traditional min-max. So I'm going to look at an example here where I'm going to stick to the forklift example that Pedro was using. So we're going to look at a forklift and its spare parts list. So we've got, in this case, it's just a demo data, again, a basic scenario. We've got a single item that's been approved that we want to keep stock of. And we've told the system that we're going to keep 2 in inventory of this. But before I get into that, just want to call out in the middle here, we've got that Copilot summary. So again, we're embedding Copilot throughout the solution. this Copilot is just giving us a little bit of summary about this item without me having to go and have a look at bits and pieces. It can tell me what's available on hand, what the purchasing price is, what the sales price is, etc., without having to go and dig for that information. But we're going to look at the net requirements screen, which is the end result of the planning engine giving us what we need to buy based on our planning settings. So we can see here we've got 2 as a minimum. I've only got 1 on hand, so the system said here's a planned purchase order to go and buy another one to get us up to that minimum 2 that we want to keep. So as a planner, I confirm that, and that will automatically convert it into a purchase order. So a different path to getting to a purchase order than what we saw with Pedro going from a more reactive, I need to get a subcontract service or buy a part, then this is a more structured planning view of the world. So we now have our purchase order created. Again, we've got some Copilot summaries, again, just to tell us a little bit about the purchase order. We confirm it off like we saw again with Pedro. We can tick the print management button on here, and that will look up the vendor contacts, and it will automatically email the people that need to see this purchase order. But let's say, you know, the world's not perfect, and we also need to buy something else from the supplier we forgot about, and we want to add that onto this purchase order. So being workflow controlled, I can't edit it yet. It's all locked down. So what I need to do is request a change, which is going to set the purchase order back to draft. And then it's going to allow me to add what I need to amend and then re-trigger it into the workflow. So in this case, I'm going to add an additional line. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to resubmit to the workflow. So I've added the second line. We can see once we go to the workflow button, like with Pedro's example, it's doing some validation, so we can have policies to make sure that we are doing what we're meant to be doing as a business process. Once it's okay with those checks, that's then going to allow me to submit that into the workflow. And again, allow me to put that comment in to help grease the wheels of approval. But rather than approving this in finance and operations, as we saw with Pedro via his home screen, I'm going to use the new mobile app. So Microsoft have developed a mobile app to allow people out in the field or people that aren't behind a desk all day to still be able to get access to approve purchase orders and purchase requisitions, so we're not holding up the process. This will also be extended to other orders in the future, but at the moment, the first release is purchase orders and requisitions. So I can see that purchase order. I could look at any comments. I can drill into the order. I can look at attachments. If someone's attached something, I can see the lines. I can even drill in further to get even more detail from those lines. Drill in even further. And once I'm happy with that, I can come back out to the purchase order, and you can see in the bottom there, I can approve it, or I could reject it, or delegate to someone else, or request a change. So I'm going to approve that, and that's then going to approve the purchase order back in finance and operations. Cool. So we've made the change. We've approved that back to the supplier. We've confirmed that back to the supplier, and now the spare parts have turned up in our warehouse. So we need to receipt them in now. So finance and operations has a full-blown advanced warehousing app with full wireless scanning capability, and this is the app that's warehouse workers use to do their warehouse tasks, whether it's receipting, stock takes, counts, managing production, end-to-end inventory processes. We've recently also got Copilot added in, so we can see here a bit of a snapshot of what's happening in the warehouse. We've got 3 outbound orders, 4 inbound orders, how many lines there are, how many devices are online. So again, just bringing all the data that's already there up into a simple screen up front, so that if I'm wanting to manage this stuff, I'm not having to go back to an office or my desk and try and work out what's happening in the warehouse. I can see it directly on the app. Oh. Just play that again. So once I'm happy with that detail, then I can start that receiving process. So I can go to my inbound menu. Now these are all completely configurable, and depending on who you are is what processes you can do. I'm going to start that purchase order receive process. So it's going to ask me for a purchase order, which normally, ideally, I would scan that in. And then it's going to say, right, which item are you going to start receiving from that purchase order? So again, I would hopefully be scanning a barcode, getting that item coming up, and then it's going to ask me how many are we receiving. We get the image from finance and operations, so I can do a proper check to make sure I'm on the right item. I can see that I'm going to receiving location, which is just an inbound dock location, so someone's going to pick that up and put that away as a second step. Plays back all the values that I've entered, and this could be serial tracked, batch tracked, and then I've confirmed it. So I've now received that stock into the warehouse. Another thing we can do is use quality management. So we can see here that we've got an open quality order. So I've got a quality rule set up to say when I receive this item, or it could be a group of items from this vendor or a group of vendors, automatically create a quality order with a series of tests that I need to complete. So I, from the order, can jump to that quality order. You'll probably be able to spot the spelling mistake in my test, but I'm testing the voltage of this. So what I can also do on this quality order, and this can be automated, is I can say what happens if it passes or fails. So if it's a failed quality order, I can set the status, the inventory status, to be blocking. So no one else can use that until quality have done some further work or return it to the supplier to get a new one. And obviously if it passes, I want it to be available so that they can then go and send it into the spares warehouse. And so from here, I can go through, register all the values for the tests. So in this case, I'm saying it was a pass. We tested one, we validate it's good, and then we can, once we've done all the tests, if there are multiple tests, we can validate the order as a whole. And by doing that, we'll then enact the inventory status blocking if that's something that's been turned on. Right, so we now have it in our warehouse. The next bit of quality is another thing that's been added recently is the traceability service. So if we've got particularly serialized parts, and maybe we do manufacturing as well and we build parts, and I want to be able to, if I've got an issue with a serialized part, I want to be able to trace back and see, well, how was that made? Where did it come from? What suppliers and what date and what time? So that's what the new traceability service does for us. Another solution built on the Dataverse. So in a technology space that allows us to easily connect with other systems. We might be ingesting different data. We've got APIs that can be sent to other systems or regulatory bodies that need that data, as well as being able to embed Copilot into it. So we can see here that a user can look at that composition tree. They've got some Copilot summaries in the middle here, a little bit of a timeline of what's happened, and then we can do a where used inquiry to see what was used. So we clip up, excuse me, at the top. And again, we've got those Copilot summaries telling us the last time this product was made and even the detail of who made it. So detail that I could have gone and got from finance and operations, but this is bringing it all together, putting it in a structured way that I can then report on afterwards as well. Cool, nearly there. So now we've got to pay. So we've got our stuff, gone through our quality tests, we need to pay the supplier. So I'm going to show you invoice capture, which is our OCR, optical carriage return and workflow automation tool for accounts payable. So this is the ability to be able to send an invoice into either SharePoint or Outlook inbox, and the system's going to pick it up using AI machine learning. It's going to scrape the data off that AP invoice, have it there. If everything matches, it'll pass automatically through to finance and operations, and then it'll go through workflow. If everything matches, the three-way match works, it will automatically process the invoice. So I can go end to end without a user having to touch the invoice to make that AP process much more efficient. So I can go to invoice capture from my homepage. I get some nice dashboards about what's happening, how many invoices I'm processing, what their statuses are. I'm just going to look at an old example that I've already put through. So we can look at ones that have already been transferred, and the top one was the one that I did. And if there were problems, then I'd come into here and it would give me some warnings to say, I'm not too sure if I've got the right field here, or maybe I couldn't find a purchase order number. Can you map it? Then it will learn, and next time it'll flow through. So if I am having to tweak any of this stuff, I can do that in this form, hit the transfer, and it'll send it into F&O, where I've got nice workspaces to be able to manage the different stages of things, whether they're in transfer, if they're going in the workflow, if they've been stuck in the workflow. So again, I'm not having to go and find that information. It's been surfaced to the top for an AP user to be able to drive from. Cool. So we've now paid for it, and to sort of close the loop on it, I now want to look at my vendor performance. So are my vendors doing a good job? Do we need to have any of those conversations with it? We saw that purchase spend analysis that Pedro looked at, but this is looking more at their performance. Are they delivering in full and on time? So I have this workspace that gives me some of those KPIs up front, but I can drill into my embedded Power BI analytics to get an even deeper dive into this stuff. These can be changed, so you can change the graphics, the visuals, and you can create new pages if you've got access to do so. But again, we've seen it with David and Pedro's demonstrations that we can filter, we can change things, we can click on something which will in context change all the other KPIs to match what I'm looking at. Cool. And then the very last thing I wanted to show was the Power Platform. So the Power Platform is a low no-code development engine that natively connects to finance and operations and allows us to augment processes or streamline processes to make people's lives easier. So this is a very simple scenario where we have people out in the field that need to tell the system that they've commissioned an asset and it's now live, which would change the lifecycle state of an asset and give it a date. So they could do that on a tablet or a phone, but getting into the screens is a bit hard when you're out in the field. So we just want to have a nice, simple app that they can search for the asset and basically put that date in and do it. So this is a template app. So it took me about 30 minutes to install the template, tweak some of the fields. You can see here that I can just edit it. I can change the date to the date that we're saying is now live, and hit that live in asset. And then that's going to then talk back to F&O, stamp that date on the asset, and set the lifecycle state to live or whatever state I've built in that app. And awesome, that's me. So just in summary, so we looked at some of the planning apps, planning material consumption for assets, approval apps, bringing things in via into the warehouse with a wireless device, embedded quality management and traceability, automating that invoice process end to end, and then leveraging a Power Platform to make people's lives even easier so they're not having to log into heavy transactional screens to enact processes. And that's me. So I'll hand it over to Mikkel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for letting me present here today. I represent a company called Dynaway, and I will tell you what we do and why I'm here. So just very shortly about myself, my name is Mikkel Oldenburg. You may wonder about the accent. I'm based out of Denmark, so I hope you understand the Viking accent, but feel free to ask any questions you may have. My role here at Dynaway is purely commercial. I help our partners to grow their business, and that's the reason why I'm here together with Fusion 5. So Dynaway is a software company. As mentioned, we are headquartered out of Denmark, and our pure focus is to develop software on top of Microsoft Asset Management. In fact, Dynaway is the company behind what you have just seen in D365. So Microsoft acquired part of our software in 2018, went to market with that in 2019. And since that acquisition, Dynaway has had the focus on developing advanced capabilities on top of what is standard within D365. As a software company, of course, we need partners to go to market. We need partners to sell our software, implement it, and also deliver after-sales services. And one of those very strategic partnerships that we have is of course, here together with Fusion 5. I just want to give you a brief overview of Dynaway and the facts here. So we have more than 20 years of experience. We have a very solid, pure focus on maintenance management within D365. So even what you've seen already today from the other gentlemen and what I'm going to articulate here is the fact that you have a consolidated platform where you can do all of your maintenance. That is our focus now, and that's going to be our focus in the future. We have more than 200 customers worldwide and approximately more than 50 partners. On the right-hand side, you can see some logos. Some of them you may know, some of them are probably unknown since we're trading globally, but at least one of them is Water New South Wales, customer out of Australia, long-lasting customer. So yeah. A typical question that I often get, where does Dynaway and asset management fit in? And from my perspective, you will see 9 industries here on the left. Some of them are very specific, some of them are high level. But the 9 on the left is where there is a very solid match between what Microsoft Asset Management and what Dynaway offers. The 3 on the right could also be candidates, but of course there could also be other software products within the Microsoft portfolio where there is a better match. So it really depends how maintenance is being performed. Should you ask me to pick out the ones where we have the vast majority of our customers, which you probably also saw on the previous slide, then I would say you would be looking at the 3 manufacturing disciplines on the left. Then mining and quarrying and energy and utility will be the ones that are really asset intensive and where the solution has 110% match. As a software company, of course, we have a mission, and that is to help companies perform better. We're doing that by having a data-driven approach. So everything that we try to achieve with our extensions on top of standard is really to maximize growth through a data-driven approach. So of course, the gentleman already said it, it is to minimize downtime, and then also keep a close eye on cost. Cost is always a driver within maintenance, but of course it can help you to achieve better productivity. In total, we have 12 individual modules. Since we serve so many different industries, of course, it would be hard to make a single solution where everything has the same purpose and fits all of our customers. Here, out of the 12 modules that we have in total, I have selected 7 of those. 3 of them I'll go into a little bit of details in a second. But on the left, you'll see our planning board and our mobile client. They're the most sold products within our product portfolio. Then we have our advanced asset management. That is actually the roadmap that we had when Microsoft acquired the product. So here you'll see 80, 90 features consolidated into a single module that will extend within D365. Some of the gentlemen they have already presented, very solid data-driven analytics. I'll also show you what we have made on top of the standard portfolio. So it is a robust data warehouse with Power BI dashboards out of the box, and of course these can be customized and tailored. Some industries require electronic signature and work orders. We have also created that. So on top of just completing the work order, you can also sign off. You can validate that it's actually the user who's saying that has done the work, that also did the work, and they sign off on that work order. Then we have our safe work module. In some industries, it's required. It typically includes our work permits, logout, tagout, risk assessment, and it is critical and key for some customers. Pedro already showed a little bit of this, but contractor management is huge. Not only does most customers perform their own work orders, but they also push it out to contractors, and we also made some additions there. Okay. So just deep diving a little bit into our mobile client, and this is only a slideware, but as you can see on the right, it runs on tablets, it runs on phones, actually it runs on any device that runs a browser. It is a browser app, as we call it, so an HTML browser is required. But here you can push that out to your actual workers. They can see what they have to do, as you can see here on the screenshot, there'll be checklists, they can report faults. They can report downtime. They can actually also perform purchase requisitions if you want them to do so here on the tablet. The client here on the right can be adjusted based on users, user groups. So it doesn't mean that it will look the same for all users, but it really depends what you want them to see and what you want them to perform. Not only can you push work orders to the user, they can also adjust it if they want it to someone else within the team. They can also pull down work orders that they want to perform, and they can also request work if they see something is broken.
Sorry, Mikkel, do you mind just unsharing and resharing your screen? I just had one person who said they couldn't see the slide there.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Let me just do that again.
Thanks,
Okay.
mate. I can see that. Just in the chat there, if you can let me know if you can see that, that'd be great. Sorry, Mikkel. Cheers, mate.
No problem. No problem. Also, a common request that we get from our existing and new customers, typical question, can it work offline? And yes, it does. When we say offline, it's for hours, not days or weeks. But what will happen if you go into a site of your location, it could be in the factory if there's no internet, then the technician can still perform the work order. They can also see items or spare parts which were available until I went offline, in case that I may require that for the work. So of course you can continue to perform your work. Okay. Let's just move on here. Yeah. So the planning board is another top seller. It's very requested because, of course, you can still schedule work from within D365. But what we made here also in a browser app is that you can perform your scheduling of released work orders. So on my right-hand side, I can see all of the work orders that have been released, and I can simply just drag them into whichever person I want to do the work. And once I click save on the blue button in the right hand corner, then it will automatically sync with D365 and it would push it out to the mobile client like you saw before. So I can do that in real time. And of course, if something is adjusted in D365, it's also shown here and vice versa. This tool also allows me to, for example, split work orders. If I have multiple people working on the same work order, then I can also do that from here. So the last product that I want to highlight, and I know that we run out of time, but I just want to give you a small insights to at least one of the dashboards that we've made. So if we open that up here, let me just show you this dashboard here. So maintenance reliability is huge, obviously, and the more data we capture, the more the system can actually try to predict what is going to happen. So let's imagine I go into a peak season, I have a busy weekend coming up, and I need to see which assets have a high tendency of a breakdown. What may the faults be? What are the symptoms? And what are the trends over time? So you can see here that my reliability on these 5-6 assets are turning red, meaning that, okay, there is a high likelihood of a breakdown on these 5. So of course I want to focus my attention there instead of running around in the whole factory fixing everything. If I just click on the first one here, I can drill down and see what are the typical symptoms of a breakdown on this specific asset. And I can see the typical breakdown symptom is throughput. So it seems like it's quite often running dry. So of course I need to make sure that this doesn't happen now that I'm entering my peak season. So another good example of the more we use the system, the more intelligent we start to use the system, the more data we capture, the more we can actually ask the system to help us. I'll just move back to the slide here. So I hope you can still see my screen. I see we have 5 minutes left. What I just want to cover here at the very end is a typical question that we get, like why Dynaway, why asset management? And that's a very good question. And typically we meet customers that may have a standalone. Of course, standalone asset management solutions, they're very quick to deploy. There may be isolated data, so you'll have another silo of information within the business. And what typically happens after that is that customers, they try to integrate that third-party standalone application, which means that you're bringing a lot of complexity into your infrastructure. Of course, what I've shown you here today and what the gentlemen have shown you here today is when you have a built-in, completely embedded environment, then of course you leverage not only just Dynaway, but the complete D365 Microsoft stack. Okay, that was speed talking, Garrett. I'll hand it back to you. I see we're almost out of time, so I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, East Mikkel. So I just want to say to those who are out about the slides, just those first couple you missed, I'll make sure that they are shared with all of you including the event recording as well. If you do have any questions or would like to see a little bit more of what we've shown today in action, please feel free to reach out to us directly. This team is very passionate about all things Microsoft F&O and asset intensive organizations. We would be more than happy to go into greater detail. Other than that, we'll let you have a couple of minutes before your next meeting, no doubt. We really appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you for the next one. Take care, everyone.